Welcome to Fan for Racing Radio. I'm Fan for Racing Sharon, and joining me is Jay Hughesman. Um,
Did you get muted? Oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah, I had the stream on for some reason, and so you were getting an echo. I apologize for that. We are here for our Hot Topic Sound Off segment, and today it's Silly Season Slumps and Situations, episode number 2523. And Jay, let's go ahead and get started with our thoughts about the racing at Watkins Glen for ARCA Menards Series, Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup, and for Tri-City Raceway for the ARCA West Series.
Well, I thought all the racing, honestly, I didn't get to see anything from the Tri-City race, but I watched everything from Watkins Glen. I thought there was some good racing. I'll start with the ARCA Menards Series. It was great to see, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, McKee. What's his first name?
Tristan.
McKee. There we go. I was thinking Travis, but I knew that wasn't right. 15-year-old get his first win like that. The only issue I had was that everybody of the top contenders had issues, and I know that's great for ratings and the point standings, makes it a little more interesting. But if you watch the race, and I know in the history books, a year from now, nobody will remember necessarily. They'll just show him as a winner. And I would never take anything away from the talent to anybody. Same thing with the rain shortened race or, whatever else brings it about. But that kind of took away from the excitement of the race as you were watching it, if you will. Now, in the truck series, I thought there was some great racing, and I know they said it. Corey Heim, how is he going to lose this one? Because, again, he had a dominant truck, worked his way back through, got up near the front, seas parted for him, if you will. This one went in his favor. And honestly, again, if you talk about the racing gods, he was probably owed one or two because the gods have been angry with him throughout the year. So you can't fault that. Again, he was in position. Things happen. He took advantage of it. Most of the year, he's been on the wrong side of that. The Xfinity Series, to me, was the best overall racing action. I thought we saw some great competition, some great battles, some very talented drivers. We had to see Connor Zilisch show some maturity again, working his way through the field. Made some outrageous moves there where even the broadcasters were like, did he really just do that, make a pass three cars in a corner where you probably shouldn't make that move? And that's something, honestly, we've seen SVG do. I think Kyle Larson maybe has some in the past, but I know with especially the Chicago street course, they talked about that. I mean, he's making moves where nobody else can. In the Chicago race, we saw AJ Allmendinger duplicate it. So obviously, Connor Zilisch is watching and learning. And then we'll get to another topic on him later on. But so again, I thought that one was overall best racing. On the Cup side, what are we on? Verse 5, 6, whatever, SVG again. And I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, he has that talent. We have that many road courses. I know now there's people screaming of cut back on the number of road courses, change the playoff system so somebody like that can't get in by winning. That just makes me sad. But again, appreciate the talent. And he's even said it of he's had to up his game, which is scary if you're talking about him improving on the road courses. But he said, hey, others are getting to see me. This track, again, they've all run on before. He doesn't have a whole lot of experience, but his first time there, he was second with Chris Buescher. And going back, I'd forgotten that again. All you see when you look at the stat book after a year is the results, that he actually made a mistake on that of allowed Chris Buescher to put some pressure on him, and then he was watching that car behind him hit the wall. He said it got him offline. He actually said he lost the grip on the steering wheel, and that just shook him up for that split second. And Chris Buescher got by him. So, that happens. The one thing I will say this about this, especially for Trackhouse as a team, we know they haven't exactly brought forth all the best speed and top cars all year for all the drivers, not SVG. But to win, what has he got? 4 in a row now? 4 or 5?
He's got 4 victories.
To get that, you're talking no mechanical issues, no dust ups with other drivers, be involved in somebody else's mess. You know, I mean, truly, and then having the fast car. Again, you've got to have a fast car in order to do that. Maybe not the fastest car, but when you got the driver that can do spectacular things and maybe not the best car, this is what you get. And, you know, there were some instances where there were a couple of drivers that maybe could contend with him. Ryan Blaney being one of them. And I know they talked about that again of even while SVG was in second behind Blaney, was he saving his equipment? If so, if that's the case, guess what? Good strategy, smart thinking, smart driver. You know, it's not always about having the most fastest race car, most dominant car, you know, all that. It's also the strategy, whether it be from the crew chief side or the driver's side. Same with fuel mileage, saving gas. You know, that's a skill, that's a talent. If you think it's going to come to that and you're doing it, good on you, you know. So it was a good race. I mean, again, I didn't find it boring, but if you were to take him out of it, the battle from second through fourth behind him was great racing. Would have been a great 3-4 wide battle for the finish, but that's not what the case was.
Exactly. We got to deal with what it was. I will just mention, and I should have done this at the very beginning of the show, Chris is not with us today because he's got a lot going on right now. He is the announcer at Why Not Motorsports Park, and they've got the Southern Street Stock Nationals, a 4-day event coming up. And he's already notified me that probably for the next couple of weeks, he's not going to be able to be here for our Hot Topic Sound Off show. So it's just going to be me and Jay, but we're going to do the best we can here to make the Hot Topics an interesting conversation here. So with
I want to throw something out there. I know it was offline, but I said, well, Chris is a bum. No, that is a huge show for the House of Hook. Why Not Motorsports Park? 200 and some cars in 2 classes, 100 plus street stocks as well as 100 plus factory stocks that they do now as in addition to the street stocks, although it's still the Street Stock Nationals. So yeah, it is. And I've been there. I have honestly been there. I didn't even watch all the races a few years back, and I left for the hotel at about 5:30 in the morning. I think the modifieds got off the track about 7 a.m., which is when they cut it back to now just the 2 classes. But it is a big weekend for them. It's one of those that is their year when you talk about the Street Stock Nationals. So I kid Chris. Again, I do love him. He's my brother. So if he needs to rest up afterwards, I fully understand.
Yes, and it certainly sounds like he'll need to do some resting up afterwards. So we will miss him, but we'll look forward to when he does return in about 3 weeks. So with regard to the racing this weekend, I will start with the Tri-City Raceway event. We did have a conversation today with the race winner, Kyle Keller, and he talks about winning that race. It was his first ARCA Menards Series win, and a very emotional win at that. So I was super excited for Kyle Keller, and I will be posting that interview with him tomorrow morning if you want to hear directly from him. It was not necessarily an easy win. He did have to work his way through the field, and he had to contend with Jake Bowman, who was the winner at Colorado National Speedway. And it was a restart with 5 to go, and he was able to make that pass for the win and hold it and go for that victory. So I thought that was pretty exciting. And mechanical issues are just part of what happens with a lot of these races. So there was some of that in the race as well, but I was super happy for Kyle Keller. As far as the Truck Series race, Corey Heim is just phenomenal. I think we're seeing him really make some history. You know, with all the races he has won, there are so many races that he has come close to winning in this series this season as well. He is truly making history. I think they said he has, you know, in the time that he's been with NASCAR, he's got more victories, 17 victories in just the short time that he's been racing in the NASCAR Truck Series. And I just think that is phenomenal. So I don't want to discourage people from watching the Truck Series because Corey Heim is kind of dominant in that series. But I think the racing throughout the series, there is a lot of other racing going on. Daniel Hemrick takes a little bit of a rap because he's a courteous driver. He's very respectful of the other drivers, and a lot of people want him to be more aggressive. I say let Daniel Hemrick be Daniel Hemrick. I like it. And yes, Corey Heim beat him. And I just think Corey Heim is a phenomenal driver. And I really hope fans will appreciate him for the driver he is and what he's accomplishing. There's a lot going on in the Truck Series right now, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But they are gearing up for their season finale and racing in their playoffs. So this is going to be exciting. The next race, I think, is the last race of the regular season for the Truck Series. Is it not, Jay?
Yes, I believe so. There's Richmond. Yes, I believe so.
Richmond is their season finale, I'm pretty sure. And so then they will start their playoff season after Richmond. So we're going to know who the 10 drivers are going to be, and we're going to talk about that later on as well. So that's why we're getting so much competition and so many changes, I think, within the NASCAR Truck Series. As far as the Xfinity Series race, Connor Zilisch, another just phenomenal driver. And we're so lucky to have so many phenomenal drivers coming up through the ranks. And, you know, you talked about the ARCA East Series or the ARCA Menards Series race with Tristan, now I can't think of his last name.
McKee.
With Tristan
See,
McKee.
That's why we make a good team. I had the last name, you had the first name, so we're good.
He is going to be another phenomenal driver, winning his debut at Watkins Glen International, his race in the ARCA Menards Series against some really tough competitors and winning that race. He turned 15 on August the 3rd and was racing his first ARCA Menards Series race just a few days later and winning. We're going to see a lot of Tristan McKee, and he's going to be another driver that is going to be phenomenal to watch. So keep your eye on him as we move forward. I started to say the Xfinity Series with Connor Zilisch, another just amazing driver, and we've seen him from the very beginning. I think he won his debut in the Xfinity Series
At Watkins Glen last year. Yep.
Yeah, and we have just seen phenomenal things from him. There was a lot of racing going on in that race. A lot of things happening, and we'll talk about some of that later on as well. So there was some amazing racing. Michael McDowell in the race was up there contending, and I thought that was pretty good. Shane Van Gisbergen, I don't think was in this race. Oh, yes, he was.
He was. He got bumped by teammate Connor Zilisch. Yeah, I don't think we had that as a hot topic, but maybe we'll get to it. But
we'll talk about that when we talk about the Austin Hill thing, I'm sure.
All right.
But, Yeah, there was a lot of really great things going on in that race. A lot of hard racing. I felt like, Jay, that they were racing on the edge, particularly in the third stage. I just think it elevated in the third stage, and everybody was just racing on that edge between a sane race and an insane race. And sometimes it did get a little insane. But it was fun to watch. In the Cup Series, Shane Van Gisbergen, another amazing driver on the road courses, and I like your point about drivers learning from Shane Van Gisbergen and watching him. I think we are seeing drivers learning from him, and I think over time it's going to elevate the racing of the drivers in that Cup Series, having Shane Van Gisbergen as their lead and learning how he gets through those corners so smoothly. He's just the smoothest road course racer I think I've ever seen. And he just knows how to navigate those corners. And if you watch him, everybody else is kind of all over the place a little bit. He just goes and slides through all of those corners, and he just makes it look so effortless. And I think, again, we're seeing history in the making. And I do think over time, we are going to see better racing in both the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series with Connor Zilisch and with Shane Van Gisbergen. So, and it's just a matter of time. He's going to figure out these ovals. He's getting better already. And I think he's going to be good on the ovals as well as he continues to learn and grow. There was other racing throughout the event. A lot of different strategies playing out and everything. And it was just a matter of who was on top at the end. But he had an 11-second plus lead at the end of that race. So really, it was for the positions beyond the first place that they were really racing for at the end of that race. And I was watching all of it. I thought it was exciting and a lot of fun to watch. And I know I'm probably in the minority on that, but I love the racing that we're seeing in all of these series right now. And I think we've got some really good racers in the pipeline to move up and through the ranks here.
Certainly do. And going back to the SVG thing, you hit on, I know you had the 11, I don't know if that's what the final margin of victory was, but there was a gap. Again, Christopher Bell and those guys were coming again. The tire strategy. The one thing I saw this weekend, both in the Xfinity as well as the Cup Series, as we get closer to this playoff, especially drivers that are on the bubble of taking that shot at stage wins or stage points, trying to make sure they get the points they need if they got to rely on points. Connor Zilisch and Justin Allgaier in the Xfinity Series. Allgaier pulled the trigger first, staying out, getting the 10 bonus points. They're battling for, again, going in at that time, the thought process was for the regular season championship. So Allgaier did it in the first stage. Normally, I think we would have seen Connor Zilisch pit and not go for the stage points in stage two, but he's got to get those points back to stay even. After the race, they were 7 points apart. So on the Cup side, we saw Chris Buescher, Ryan Preece. I'm trying to think who else that we saw in there. Right, and again, that's where they're at in points. Again, knowing, okay, winning the race, we're going to have to beat SVG. Probably not going to happen. So what's our next best thing? Maximize points. And they were doing that. However, as somebody said,
the Xfinity Series.
What's that?
It was the Burtons in the Xfinity.
There we go. I knew there were some more that were doing different things. Like I said, of Allgaier and Zilisch, it was about the regular season championship. For some of the other drivers, then it's about where they are in points on the bubble. So that was that. I thought that kind of added more to it. And then you talked about the intensity. Yeah, obviously, anytime stage 3, it's go time. The pay window's open, but also again, we're that close to the end of the regular season. Some drivers are like, "Hey, I'm already in a major points deficit. This is one of 3 chances we got left to win. Got to do something." Again, to be in position behind SVG if he were to make that mistake again and bump the wall or whatever. It is amazing, and I enjoyed it. Like I said, I would by no means call it bad racing. I understand right now that's what, especially with it being we had the multiple road courses in a rather short period of time. I know that got brought up of the schedule change and maybe spreading them out more. Mm-hmm. But again, you're limited to a lot of different things when it comes to that.
They kind of group all the short tracks together too in the 1.5.
It does seem, yeah. You know, I would never complain about that because again, I know that NASCAR has a lot in their hands as far as just trying to make a schedule work. Period, logistics wise and everything else. So, would it ideally be nice to have them, go super speedway to start at Daytona, short track, road course, 1.5 miles, super speedway, short track. Yeah, I mean, again, 1 every 4 or whatever, since we have 4 different styles. It's just not possible.
Logistics too, though.
I mean, yeah, right. That's why I said there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just a matter of, hey, we want a road course every 5th race. Boom, there it is. No, that's not how it works.
One thing I noticed in the Cup Series that I wanted to point out too is that I think this is the second time this season where we saw that everybody in that Cup Series finished that race running. There were no accidents, no mechanical issues. And I think that is a very, very good thing. Again, that to me represents the quality of that series, that it's a premier series. They're not wrecking each other. They're getting the mechanics correct on these cars. We didn't have any drivers wreck out in that series.
Well, yes and no. He did come back, but Kyle Larson spent about 20 laps or so behind the wall. I don't remember how many laps down.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned again, yeah, right. Yeah, that's another hot topic. But so, yeah, he was running at the end. That wasn't on the lead lap. But even so, we do see that more cars on the lead lap each and every year, as you mentioned, which you're right. There's 2 aspects to that. I mentioned it in the ARCA Menards series of the top contenders falling out. So that opens the door. You see some new winners and the points tighten up. However, you also like to see it where if everybody's running the competition being that close, but then guess what? That makes it tough to pass.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll talk about that, I guess. But there were people I thought that were passing through the field, and it is tough to pass, and it should be tough to pass in my mind. This is the Premier Series. No way should NASCAR be making it easy on these drivers. They should be making it tough on these drivers to get their victories, and it is tough. So I think that's a good thing. Okay. Oh, this is kind of interesting. I just noticed a new feature here. We don't have any comments yet in our live stream from the live stream chat. So I'm hoping that All Sports All Day was here today so that he could help us out with a third commentary.
Right.
He needs to agree with Chris sometimes. So we need that on here to have a divergent point of view. So I hope he's here, and I hope he'll comment as we continue forward. Jay, you want to pick out the next hot topic?
Yeah, well, I know you mentioned that. I know we got a couple people watching. We appreciate it. Please feel free to comment. We would love to hear from you, as well as Sharon and I were talking beforehand. I guess you said it was today. We picked up 2 new subscribers. So appreciate that. And I know Sharon will thank everybody at the end, but please jump in here with your thoughts and opinions. we welcome him. And with that, the next topic, I guess we can just go down the list, and we've been talking about him. Shane Van Gisbergen, obviously, he can win on road courses. Got 4 victories. He's up as far as 4 wins at the top of the chart. With where he's at in points, he won't get any bonus points for the regular season standings. So I think right now he'd be seeded second, third, or fourth when the playoffs start. If he can get through the first round, and based on the bonus points he's built up, he should be able to. There's a road course, the Roval, in the second round. So that may put him into that third round. Question is he, then a championship contender? You mentioned it, and I talked about it on several shows back. His average finish has gone from like the high 20s down to the low 20s on the oval tracks. First 8 races of the year versus the second 8 as far as ovals. Road courses, got it covered. No question asked. So do I see him as a true championship contender or top 4 this year? No. He's right on the edge, and I say we're seeing that improvement. I think in the next year or so, he will be. And we saw other road course racers that have come in, go through this, AJ Allmendinger, Austin Cindric. So I think it does take that little bit of time. And I see, like I said, we're already seeing it. He did sign a contract. I know that wasn't a separate hot topic we had, but he has signed a multi-year contract extension with Trackhouse. There's a couple different articles out on it if you want to take a look. And again, I am thrilled about that. What he brings to the sport as far as fan base, the Australian, you got international flavor, the talent, again, road course, obviously, but just the talent as a driver. Take anybody else and put them out there on oval tracks with the Cup Series drivers. It'd be a while for me before I even thought about looking at the top 10, or whatever. So we have seen that. And I know Trackhouse is really going through the organization to try and make sure or do what they can to provide that. And we saw Ross Chastain get a win. They haven't been the most solid year in and year out, and they're looking to change that. So I look forward to it, and I think they got a bright future as far as the organization and who they can have. And again, no matter how you get the win, where you get the win, it's winning you're in. So.
And he's number 2 in the series point standings as far as seeding. So him and there's only 2 drivers with 4 victories this season, and that's Denny Hamlin in that number 1 spot, and now Shane Van Gisbergen in the number 2 spot. So I think that, and I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again, I think Shane Van Gisbergen is going to make all of the drivers better in that series. And they're going to make him better as far as when it comes to the ovals and the short track racing and the other types of racing that we do. So I tend to agree with you. I think that probably not this year. He's probably not going to be a Final Four driver. But I think over time, we might see that from Shane Van Gisbergen as he continues to improve his performance on the ovals. So there's not a lot more to say with regard to that. But there is the Roval that's part of the playoff schedule. I think it's the next to the last round.
Yeah, that's why I say I think it's somewhere in round number 8, because a couple of drivers have used that one to advance themselves onward. I don't have the schedule up in front of me, but it is, because that's why I said if you get through the first round, hit that one in the second round, advance him into the third. But there is where, not that, again, it can't be done, especially
rounds.
Right. And again, think about it this way, though, of just to be considered as a championship for, you're right, he's got the 4 wins, but you're talking about Denny Hamlin having 4, Kyle Larson, who needs to get back to where he was if he wants to be in that consideration, William Byron been your points leader, most consistent most of the year. I almost said all year long, but again, most of the year. and Christopher Bell has 3 wins. Again, they haven't necessarily come recently, but he's back. Then you throw in Chase Briscoe, who's been probably the hottest driver as of late. You cannot ever count out Team Penske of Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano, even if they've been eliminated, because sometimes they get put back in. So now right there are 7 drivers, and you're talking about trying to put SVG in with those 7. That's 8, only half of them. You're up against some tough competition, even if you're good when it comes to these playoffs, you've got to be great and flawless, basically.
Consistency is key. And Shane Van Gisbergen is very consistent when it comes to road courses, but you got to have consistency and improved ability on all different types of tracks. The other thing is that this is a thing of waves. And it doesn't matter which series you're in. You have your drivers that peak in the first half of the season, slump in the second half, and then come back to the playoffs. Or you've got drivers like Tony Stewart a few years back who won races during the regular season, but felt that they were running so poorly that he didn't feel that they deserved to be in the playoffs, and then picked off 5 of 10 races to win during the playoffs. So when you peak, it has a lot to do with this. It is a matter of waves, because it is extremely hard to peak all season long in this series. You're going to have ups and downs. There's going to be mistakes made. But it's those people that can overcome those adversities and still persevere and get the most out of that car, despite the fact that it might not be the best car on the track. And we've seen some champions do that and be able to. My brother talks about Martin Truex Jr. getting the most out of his car, even though it's not always the best car on the track. And there are drivers that excel at that. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. But I do think that Shane Van Gisbergen's time to be in the Final Four is probably not this year. I'll be happy for him if it is, but it's probably not going to be this year because he does need to continue to perfect his skill or get better with his skill on the different types of tracks. Because that's going to be important. That's what that playoff is kind of built around, is different types of tracks and showcasing drivers that can perform well and be consistent on the variety of tracks that we race throughout the year. So I enjoy watching him. I enjoy having him in the sport. And I think he brings a lot to the table. And I think in future years, he's going to bring a lot more.
And that's where, I agree with that. Like I said, do I think he can in the future? Absolutely. This year again, even as we talked about moving to his average finish of 20th, and that's average, so that means he's getting some top 10s because he's had some rough finishes as well. But 20th place average finish is not going to get you to that championship 4. We've seen that in the past. Through the playoffs, you're talking about the average finish being 9 point something, maybe 10 point something. But it's great. I am fully on board of he deserves to be in the playoffs. And I was going to look at that real quick if you recall, mid-season. Come up. Okay, my computer's froze. He didn't make the in-season championship because he was 33rd, and they only took the top 32. Well, yeah. He's somewhere in the 21st. And Sharon, my computer's froze up here, so
okay, let me look it up here. As far as you want the standings, where he is in the standings?
The Cup Series standings. I believe he was somewhere. I know him and Brad Keselowski both had moved themselves up.
Okay, right now he's 25th. And
he's 25th. All right.
if I can.
It looks like. Whoops.
I have to do it on a different screen in order to bring
All
it
right.
up. Hold on.
Okay, it's Brad that is up to 19th. Both of those, again, in the latter half of the season, have moved up because Brad Keselowski was another one, I think was like 31st or 30th in points. So, we see that improvement. Again, maybe a little bit too late here at the end of the year, but that just gives you that to look forward to next year. And I certainly do look forward to it. Yeah, right there. Okay, I see him as far as overall points, 25th.
Yeah.
Again, can he make a run in the playoffs? Absolutely. I do think with the bonus points that he has, which is 22, not a full guarantee to make it through that first round based off the bonus points alone, but gives him a pretty solid cushion. And that's why you build up these playoff points. We talk about how important they are because there's only two other drivers, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson, that have 20 plus points. William Byron 17, as well as Christopher Bell at 17. So there again, that's going to give you that cushion so you can have a little bit of an issue maybe in that first round. But after that, man, you got to be on your game, no doubt.
Yeah. Do you want to see the playoff points or the playoff picture on this?
No, oh, cool. Bob's. All right. Hi, Bob.
Bob's discount. Yeah.
I hadn't seen that one. No, you already said it. When they receive the points, he will be in the top 5, and that's why I said that might be enough to carry him through. Again, the first round we only eliminate 4 drivers. You'd have to have some really, really rough races.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. I see you got our next topic up already.
Yeah, I've got our next topic up here. I'm going to bring this one up. The NASCAR Truck Series silly season. Andreas Perez de Lara, Corey Lajoie, Kaden Honeycutt, Corey Heim, and who did I miss? There's so much movement within. Bailey Curry is going to be in that number 52 truck now for the remainder of the season. Andreas.
Kaden Honeycutt's moving to the 52. Bailey Curry is going into the Nice Motorsports.
Yes, it's going to be in the 45.
There you go.
Okay, yeah. Andreas Perez is going to be in the 44 now at Nice Motorsports. Corey Lajoie is moving into the 77 from Spire Motorsports. The team that he left last year has welcomed him back now in that number 77. Kaden Honeycutt moves from the 45 to the number 52 for Stewart Friesen and will be racing there for the remainder of the year. Corey Heim, they've already announced he's signed with 2311 for next season. And so I think his seat is going to be an open seat. So I don't think he's going to be, I think they've already said he is not going to be back in the truck series. Now, whether he's got that 2311 ride is going to be in the Xfinity series or the Cup series, we're not 100% sure just yet. So what did I miss, Jay?
Well, Kaden Honeycutt's on the list of that is who speculation wise is rumored to go to Tricon Garage. All we know is that he was going to a new manufacturer. What's that?
I think he's rumored to go into Tricon Garage in the open seat by Corey Heim.
Right. That seems to be where things are headed. Those two announcements made one right after the other the same day. Yep. Coincidentally, we'll have to wait and see. Here's the other factor, and for me, for a couple of reasons, when we get into this silly season, you got to remember Ram is coming back next year, has not announced the team or whatever. You see some of these changes Spire Motorsports is making. That is one that I had heard rumor of if they were to come with an already set organization. And I don't know how that would affect their Cup side. You think about it right now, they work in partnership with Hendrick Motorsports. We have seen great growth with them on that side. on the Cup side, and they're making some changes and talk there as well that might be putting those pieces together, starting with the Truck Series, and we're seeing some of the changes there now that might include a manufacturer down the road. And that's just my thoughts. I've heard that rumor. I like it. I've liked Spire Motorsports all along, and definitely starting to see the fruits of their labor as they've built that organization. You go back to Gainbridge, which also has ties to Andretti. Andretti had been rumored for years to be the one to come in with Dodge. So I think all those things are starting to align. It may have taken more time than some of us would have liked to wait it out, but I think you're starting to see these things start to line up.
Yes, and the fact that they're making these movements now, I think, is really interesting. The other part of this is, I think, Spire Motorsports has asked that their points be transferred from the 07 to the number 77 for Corey Lajoie, who's going to be racing in that car for the rest of this season. So that I thought was kind of interesting as well.
Are you sure you want to open that can of worms?
Well, go ahead,
well,
Jay.
The 07, this goes back to the way the rules are written for the owner points. The 07 has been what you call the all-star truck. If Kyle Busch runs, that's the truck he's been in. I think Ross Chastain has maybe run it a couple of times. So then I understand from the team's aspect, you want the best effort. If their 77 is their full-time plan truck for next year, that they want the best points position for that truck, I get it. I don't like the fact that they're allowed to do that, and NASCAR would have to be the one to put the stop to that. In my words, that's manipulation. I don't even know why it was ever allowed. I honestly don't. Like I said, I mean, I'm just not a fan of it. And again, is the team doing anything wrong? No, they are within the rules. I just want to see the rule changed.
Okay, yeah, it just says Spire Motorsports in consultation with NASCAR will shift the owner's points from the team's number 07 entry to the number 77 team, with veteran Corey Lajoie at the controls for the final 8 races of the season beginning at Richmond Raceway. So that's how it's worded in the release that they put out. But yeah, it's a little bit of gamesmanship that happens. It's not the first time it's happened. It's happened previously, and it looks like it could happen again this year. And NASCAR, they're the ones that would make the decision to whether or not they'll continue to do that, or if they feel like there's a need to put a stop to that. So a lot of things happening just at the close of the regular season, with Richmond being the final race for the Truck Series and the playoffs beginning with that next race. It just seems like there's a lot going on, a lot of movement between the teams.
And this is what, oh, sorry, I thought you were, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and even outside of the team with Corey Heim moving up to 2311, either in the Xfinity or Cup Series.
Well, and that was one. I mean, if that surprised you, I don't know where you've been hiding, because that's been fully expected of, right. Yeah. Actually, the question got asked of why he hadn't already. And that's a matter of enough room at the end when it comes to 2311 seats in the Xfinity or Cup side. One thing I wanted to say there, Andres Perez de Lara the results great. No. And again, we talked about this when it came to Kaden Honeycutt as well. It is a business, and it's a result-driven business. Has it been the best results? No. I think we've seen him show progress. I was very thrilled they said, hey, he's out of the ride at Spire. Oh, by the way, he's got a ride at Nice Motorsports. And I think that's a great fit. We've seen what the Nice Motorsports truck are capable of. Again, Normally it takes a cup driver such as Chastain. I know that's a regular one that goes to the Nice Motorsports. But Kaden Honeycutt, again, doesn't have a win, but was within the top 12, 10 in points to be eligible for the playoffs. So the equipment is there. So I think that's going to be a good fit. Whether that continues into the future, if it's just through the end of the season, we'll have to wait and see. But I think that could be a good fit for Nice Motorsports and Andres Perez de Lara. And I hope that it is, because I've seen the progress he's made this year with Spire Motorsports. And I know that's tough when you see, okay, somebody else comes in to your truck. Again, it's Kyle Busch, Carson Hocevar, Ross Chastain. Yeah, there's a reason they're racing on Sundays, right? So, yeah, if they come, you're expecting them to win in your truck. So, yes, you want to see them. And I know Kyle Busch actually went through this with his own drivers when he owned KBM, be like, hey, I've shown you the equipment is there, because when I come down there, I win in it. Why aren't y'all winning? Well, again, they're not to the same level as you are yet, Kyle. Give them a little bit, work with them. But like I said, I there too, being the one paying the bills, you're like, hey, we got to have some results now. In this case, I think, like I said, Spire Motorsports is looking long-term down the road and what that all involves, sponsors, manufacturers, otherwise, like I said, sometimes you got to make a business decision. Not that anybody's mad at it, anybody can't get along. It's just, they got to make that decision.
Exactly right. And like you say, there could be more to it when you think about Ram coming into the sport. So there's a lot of things that we can surmise, a lot of things that we speculate, but there's always more to it than what meets the eye. So we'll always keep that in mind. I don't have a whole lot more to say here, Jay. How about you?
No, again, what we like to say, the dominoes are starting to fall. Some of them getting filled in, whether it be on the temporary finish out the season basis, not the full announcement on next year as far as some of it, but hints at it. So we'll have to wait and see as those blocks get filled in and where everybody falls. Musical chairs, they like to call it at this time of year.
Okay, are we going in order, Jay?
Oh, sure. Let me bring this one up. Austin Hill, involved in another situation, came off his one race suspension due to the right hooking. It's NASCAR deemed intentional wrecking of a competitor. Suspended him for one race. Back, I saw an interview with him. He said he had no regrets. He said he will take it to his grave that he did not do it intentionally. He did say he felt bad and had regret about what he said on his radio while he was being held on pit road. So give him that. He acknowledged that, hey, I lost my cool and said some things I shouldn't have. But obviously still disagrees with it. And if he says he didn't do it intentionally, he obviously still disagrees with the suspension penalty itself. So with that, again, do you change your driving style? He was still an aggressive driver. Everybody knows that. He did have a situation where it was a hook of a car. I feel like this is one of fans maybe got a little jump on a bandwagon. I heard and saw some things on social media. He needs to be suspended again. Jamie McMurray during the broadcast on CW broke it down. He said, hey, initially, yeah, looked like a right hook. I think they went back and looked was there any situations or incidences between those two that it would have been a payback? I think it was a bad race decision to go to his outside. He got out there, had to come back on the track. When he came back in, he got into a guy. We saw that with Connor Zilisch and his teammate Shane Van Gisbergen. It happens. I feel like that was a racing incident. In my opinion, one that could have been controlled by him by not putting himself in that position, going out there. However, I do not feel it was an intentional, I'm going to take you out or I'm mad at you or anything else. It just happened when he came back onto the track. There was a car there and he got into him, turned him. Really bad situation. If you're a NASCAR fan, you've seen some of the previous wrecks. They replayed them. I think back to Sam Hornish. You ping pong between the two walls. It obviously blocked the track. There was a whole second set of cars that got blocked.
Yes.
Again, why did they not get word? Hey, slow down, check up. There's a roadblock ahead. Don't know, but a whole second incident there. Unfortunately, my favorite there, William Byron, he said, I thought I drove through it, and then all of a sudden I was wrecked. Turned out he had hit McDowell's wheel that was bouncing along that had come off his car. You know, that's what took him out. So he's like, yeah, I thought I was good. I hit something. Turns out it was a wheel. That ended his day. Unfortunate situation. I just say that. But again, if you're going to say, oh, he should be suspended, well, you better be calling for Connor Zilisch to be suspended because it was a very same situation. And Connor was asking over the radio, did I do something wrong there? Did I wreck him?
Exactly.
Or, you know, and yeah, even team owner Dale Jr. apparently come on the radio and said no. And again, they're both team cars at that point. He said, again, bad situation. You came back on. You got to come back on the track. I mean, you know what I mean? And it's not like on the highway where you stop and wait for a gap. You know, you're doing 100 and some miles an hour. You're coming back on the track, and it happens. Unfortunate. I know Sharon, you like to use it, you know, of once isn't it? Let me see. Accident. There we go. Twice is a coincidence. I really, like I said, maybe even put it into that coincidence because he put himself in that position. He did have another situation of bumping somebody to get position, but there again, what other driver didn't on the road course? It was happening throughout the pack. Right now, I just feel like, just like you stub your toe at home, it's Carson Hocevar's fault, right? I think right now in the Xfinity, something goes wrong, it's Austin Hill's fault.
And let's face it, there is a reputation that he has, and so it's going to be hard for him to shake that reputation. And so now every little incident that happens on the track, it's going to be his fault. But here's the thing. I don't think it was intentional either. I think that he knew that he could have done something differently. And I watched real closely to see if he could have done something differently. And it's that little bit of a lift when you see that you're that close. He had plenty of room behind him that millisecond of him lifting to avoid that incident would have gone a long way for him. And he said that when he was sitting on during the red flag, they interviewed him, and he said he realized that he probably could have done some things differently there. And to me, that was a big deal because he at least acknowledges that he could do something differently. Now, the real proof in the pudding for me is whether he does that the next time he's in that situation. It's the narrowest part of the track. It's the worst place to be right on top of somebody's bumper. And he did have some room. He could have lifted through that area. And I've said this before, sometimes it pays to slow down in order to go faster. And this is an example of it. That little bit of slowdown that you give yourself through that section of the racetrack could help you to go faster as you get past that area. And I just think that, and I said it earlier as well, these guys were driving on the edge of disaster. And I really felt that it was a high charged, high energy kind of race where these guys were racing right on that edge. And for the most part, they kept it in control. But there are a few incidents on the track where it was out of control, and I think that's one of them. The key for me is whether or not he learns and doesn't do that again, because I live by this. I learned it in high school from a teacher. She was talking about high school homework, and not having your homework the first time might have been an accident, the second time coincidence, but by the time you get to the third time, it's now a habit. And unfortunately for Austin Hill, he's way beyond that habit stage at this point. So I just wish the drivers would think a little bit more methodically when they're racing through these packs. You don't have to be the intimidator. You don't have to be right on top of that car and intimidate the driver. I hate it when people do that to me on the highway.
Right? Yeah.
You know, I don't want you to be on my bumper. And because you're making yourself more vulnerable to an accident happening. So I really think that these drivers need to really put some thought into their racing style and figure out ways that you can be faster on that track without necessarily being right on top of somebody's bumper. And I know at some tracks you have to do that for drafting purposes and so forth, but not at Watkins, Glen, and especially at that part of the track. We all know you don't turn somebody in the corner. That's the worst place to be on somebody's bumper and hit that rear quarter panel. And if we know that, I know the drivers know that. So just be smart about the way you're driving and listen to the spotters, which, by the way, that happens to be an area of the track where the spotters cannot see and cannot tell the drivers. And it's pretty much up to the drivers to police themselves through that area. And again, the other thing that it comes down to for me is respect, not only for yourself, but and changing that reputation that you have, but respect for your fellow competitors. Look at how many race cars were damaged in that incident that he knows that he could have done something differently there. I want to address the Connor Zilisch incident as well. Connor Zilisch had gone wide there and needed to get back onto the track. He was trying to get back onto the track.
Gone wide or got pushed wide? Because
Well,
there again, that was one of those of SVG might have done that to himself, not giving him a whole lot of room to begin with, and he ended up wide, but you're right.
He was pushed wide in that corner. He was trying to get himself back up onto the track without losing any of his momentum, and he misjudged, and hit what do you call Shane Van Gisbergen in his corner panel, but it ended Shane Van Gisbergen's day. Again, could he have done something differently there? Probably. Again, it's a matter of slowing down a little bit, getting yourself back onto the track, and then racing back up. We know he can do it. He did it during the race. He got behind some cars and was able to pass them and get himself back into the position. Again, a mistake that was made on the track that ended somebody's day. So I'm not necessarily saying there wasn't something more he could have done, because I think there probably was something more that he could have done. I know where he was coming from, but he does not have the same reputation, although he's headed in that direction. This is kind of the second time coincidence thing with Connor Zilisch. We know he's an aggressive driver on these tracks. So that's the way I saw it. I can forgive Austin Hill on this one, but I want to see what he does the next time he's in that situation, now that he said he knows he could have done something differently there.
Yeah, and I'm going to work backwards from the one you just talked about, Connor Zilisch and SVG. Again, and I wouldn't say anything intentional of, did SVG run him up and kind of put him out there? Yes. So again, SVG could have done something, say, hey, I know I pushed that guy out there. He's going to come back, give him a little more room. Okay. Yeah. Now, again, like you said, Connor Zilisch could have just that feather the throttle, just like you're saving gas, just that quick hiccup, get in line behind him. Didn't happen, whether it was a misjudge or whatever. And like I said, he was asking on the radio right away, did I make a mistake there and whatnot? So that tells you, though, the maturity level. When we look at him, I look at him as kind of as Ross Chastain has gone through, Carson Hocevar is going through now. He is an aggressive driver. There is no doubt about that. most of the time it pays off. And I'm going to use him because I think he is one that made the outside lane where Austin Hill had his situation work, as well as SVG, I believe. So with that, and I think he said it during his interview that you were talking about under the red flag, he also said, hey, I saw other guys going out there and making that work. Well, guess what? I think they had a little bit more power in their car, a little bit better car. And he said something about the grip might have changed and it just wasn't there for him in that car at that particular time. So I don't fault him for trying, but like you said then okay, this didn't work. I better not make it worse by coming back into somebody, which unfortunately he did. Now, again, these decisions are being made, and I don't know what the speed is there at that point. Probably close to 100 miles an hour, maybe. Yeah, that's the wide corner.
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. Point being, they're going fast. These are split-second decisions, as you said. Reflecting upon it. Okay, now the question is okay, I had to go back and look at it after the fact. What do I do next time? You're right. I mean, that's what it comes down to. If we keep seeing this week in and week out, regardless of track and whatnot, that's where you have the problem. And you're right. And it goes back to even teammates of when Sheldon Creed was over at RCR. There were some things there that Sheldon said, hey, I don't need this, let alone from a teammate. I'm not happy with it. Kind of tells there's something there. Where there's smoke, there's fire. But like I said, in this case, I don't think it was an intentional. By no means do I want to see him suspended. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, his thought process is one of the arguments they had after his wreck at Indianapolis was, well, what about this guy on the road course that somebody had hooked Austin Dillon? But a road course, it was different. So I was like, well, maybe in my mind, he's like, I can get away with it here because it's a road course. I don't even know that it would necessarily need any kind of penalty because, again, I don't feel it was an intentional, absolute unavoidable, slightly avoidable by not going out there in the first place, but it wasn't I'm going to drive in deep and see what happens or something like that we've seen. So I'm good with NASCAR just not doing it. Again, they're going to, I'm sure, keep an eye on it and be like, hey, you're treading on thin ice. You know that. But
what I liked about it is that to me, it showed that he was contemplative about what he could have done to avoid that. So to me, there was a little bit of a learning curve proof there. I don't know another way to say that. But he kind of showed us that he is learning, from that suspension and trying not to put himself in those situations. Although he did put himself in that situation, he did learn from it. I'm hoping, as I can rely on his words, that he learned from it and that we won't see that from him. Now, it's not going to be 100%. It's going to happen again. But again, it's how he deals with those situations when they happen. It's the emotional maturity that we talked about. And I think that we did not see emotional maturity with his responses at the previous race when he earned a suspension. We did see some of that emotional maturity this time around. And so I'm happy about that.
I would have to agree with that.
So that's a good thing. Okay, so now if we go to the next one, the Connor Zilisch situation.
Oh, okay. God.
So let's talk about that, Jay.
Did you see it live? Did you see it live?
I did.
I'd heard the end of the race, and that was, I actually stayed in the vehicle a little bit before, and I got to the track at Jackson Motor Speedway. So I knew the results. So I was like, all right, get out and I'll move on. I actually saw it on social media, somebody asking, well, is Connor Zilisch okay? And I was like, he won the race. Yeah, he's good, And I started hearing and seeing things, and then I saw a video of it. Oh, my goodness. That is just absolutely scary.
Confounded.
and again, they came back with the CAT scan of the head okay, because, you couldn't really see, but you knew he had to have landed on his head, and then it showed him not moving, so that was the biggest concern.
Well, I had visions of a broken neck.
Right, exactly. I mean, that just absolutely scary. And, it's one of those freak things. I don't know if, NASCAR will make rules about climbing on top of your car. Somebody brought it up on Sirius XM today. Think about it we've seen many drivers over many races, over many different series and types of cars, sprint cars, they get up on top of the wings and whatnot. Have never actually seen something like that. It might make them reflect on it, and they said, again, the window net being a little wet, and whatnot, just one of those perfect storm, if you will, and could have been so much worse.
Yes.
He was back at the track the next day, talked about it. I guess his dad, I'm not going to repeat what his dad said. I don't know if you've heard that, Sharon.
I have
not. It was on Sirius XM. Again, his dad, just like him, was thankful that it is what it is. It could have been worse. But he said, well, at least this isn't now your most embarrassing moment, as in when you were a kid and soiled yourself. So, having a little bit of fun with it.
I think I did hear that.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, yeah.
But Connor was, he said, hey, I'm just happy to be here. Obviously, he said I already happened to answer questions about, he does have a week off. The next race would be in 2 weeks at Daytona. He said SVG has talked about having a broken collarbone, having a plate put in, racing the next week, go back to Dale Earnhardt, has raced with a broken collarbone. In this day and age, I know NASCAR gives that option of the playoff waiver for injury, and that's why it's there, to not put yourself in that position, because you have to be in the car and have to get those points. So we'll see. I know Justin Marks was actually interviewed on Dave Moody's Sirius XM Speedway, said that right now they really don't know, because anything they did there in New York at Watkins Glen was to stabilize him. He was going to get checked today, I believe, sometime throughout the day today, back in North Carolina, by the doctors there, and that's where they'd start going forward as far as evaluation. Good thing is he does have a full week off for sure, because the Xfinity Series is not racing next weekend. The Daytona being the next one. I know we saw that with Kurt Busch a few years back. Man, that's a tough one to come back from after any kind of injury, after any amount of time, no matter how healed up you think you are.
Yeah, think about the wrecks there.
Again, that Justin Marks talked about that, of the probability of being involved in something, even if it is somewhat reasonably healed and okay, the risk of, and NASCAR will be involved in that as well, I'm sure. Whether it's medically cleared or getting a second waiver, because he's already been out one for his back. You're talking about the playoff implications. As I mentioned, he had maintained a 7-point lead over Justin Allgaier for the regular season championship, and that's already with missing a race, unbelievably. So I honestly, as long as he can come in and race in the playoffs, is what I want to see, because it'd be really unfortunate to see the entire season wiped out. If he has to sit out until the playoffs, 2 or 3 races, whatever they got left, Justin Allgaier gets the regular season championship, so be it. But I do want to see him at least be able to race in the playoffs, because it'd be such a shame to see a season like this not have any attempt at fruition of a championship.
Yes, I agree with you. I did see that live, and we were just like silenced. I mean, it was so shocking to see that happen. We've never seen that happen before. Now, I did watch the interview with him on Door Bumper Clear today, and they were talking about the situation, and he did not name the team or who it was, but he said there was already a competition director who has told his team no more getting on top of the door when you're going to do your victory lane celebration. We're going to stop that. Right. They're calling it the Connor rule.
Right, yeah.
And To me, I knew that they were shaking water, and he had said something about the water on the door, and his foot slipped. To me, it's the splashing of the water in victory lane. Maybe they wait until after the driver has done his standing up on the car or whatever on the door before they start splashing water all around in victory lane, because it was that, and his foot got caught up in the door net. So it was a combination of things that were happening there. So for me, it would be no liquid until after he's gotten off of the car, being splashed around in victory lane would be the rule that I would change in order to prevent something like that from ever happening again. Because we know, even though it's never happened before, it's bound to happen. The unexpected is bound to happen at some point, and that's what we saw happening in victory lane in the Xfinity series. As far as playoff implications, I'm right there with you. I really am hoping that they don't let him come back at Daytona, because I would hate to see it become an even worse injury if he were caught up in a big event at Daytona. Let him take the time and rest, get the healing process well underway. And if there's some medical thing that they can do to stabilize that, then that's fine. But don't bring him back until the playoffs begin is the way I would do that. I'm not NASCAR though, and I'm not a doctor. So we'll let NASCAR and the doctors get involved with this and see what they come up with. But Jay, your thoughts?
Yeah, the last thing, first off, going back to, let's say talking about Earnhardt again, that was the thing back in the day was you had to start every race. I'm trying to remember if Earnhardt had a sub driver in that race. And I know NASCAR it hasn't outlawed it, but said, hey, you don't even have to do that because we'll give the waiver if you miss the race. But being that he's got 2 weeks, if they feel it is set and healing, I could see them putting Connor in, starting the race, again, riding the back, out of trouble, get a caution or whatever, come in, swap out the driver. But there again, the jostling of in and out might be more risky, and they're talking about it with the collarbone of, you got, especially nowadays, with the seatbelts they have, the Hans device, you got a lot up in and around that area. So again, maybe the best thing is to sit out another week. And again, I don't know what comes after Daytona for them, but take that extra week or more. But like I said, first off, you got to do the evaluation. Obviously, he seemed fine. The arm was in a sling. They got, had it pinned up to his body to start with. He was in good spirits. I'll give him that. And they talked about that of, again, he is a true racer. Talk about Earnhardt getting back in the car and whatnot. He has that. I mean, he was at the track and did an interview on the Cup Series broadcast. Justin Marks talked about that, wanting to be there with the team and support the team. Trackhouse is who he was going to drive for, had withdrawn their entry, but he was still there at the track just to be a part of it. So we'll see. But yeah, I hope they make a wise decision. They got more options than they did in the past. So again, you don't have to be in that position. I'm sure they'd still like to try and maintain that regular season championship, like I said, of that, but we'll see.
Yeah, the two races are Daytona on August the 22nd, and then after that, it's Portland International Raceway, which is a road course, on August the 30th.
There we go. I did know that.
Yeah,
because there again, it's the left and right. They were talking about that. Is that any better with the left and right back and forth with the shoulder?
I don't think so. And then Saturday, September 6th is when their playoffs begin at Worldwide Technology Raceway. So just to put that into perspective, I really would like to see him sit out for these next two races and come back September 6th. That gives him about a month to recover from that injury before he's racing on the track again. So Um, I just felt so bad for him. I just had such bad visions of what
Yeah, no
might
doubt,
have
no doubt.
happened there. Worst case scenario, but he was so fortunate that it was just that. I call it the clavicle. They're calling it the collarbone that was broken. And I don't know how badly it was broken. I know my
Right.
sister broke her collarbone and it was kind of like this. So I don't know if it's, a clean break or if it's a break
Yep.
like this or if it's a fracture. I'm not sure exactly the extent of that injury either. And that's why it's important that the doctors get involved with this. And it sounds like that's happening with him seeing the doctors today and them going through the evaluation afterward. So,
Yeah. I would say by the end of the week, like I said, Justin Marks was saying, I believe, like I said, it was the doctor appointment sometime today. They'll get a look at the results and have a plan. May not announce anything necessarily tomorrow, but towards the end of the week, probably have a better layout and plan.
yeah, I will say he seemed to be in pretty good spirits. Yesterday, when we saw him at the track, as well as the interview that I saw him on with Your Bumper Clear, he seemed to be in pretty good spirits. They were laughing and had a good time. And he was talking a little bit about, the embarrassing moment. But the fact that he realizes it could have been so much worse than what it was. And he was talking about how he was telling them, he kind of, when he kind of came to and he was talking to them, he said, I'm fine. My shoulder's just a little bit sore, but I'm fine. And
Right.
they were like, well, we're still going to put the head restraint on you. We're still going to carry you on the stretcher and, take you to the medical center. So they did the right thing. And I'm so glad that of all the things that could have happened, that seems to be the mildest thing. And I think he's a very lucky guy.
And yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like you said, of one team competition director saying don't do it no more, the no water thing. Whether NASCAR even makes a rule, because that's one of those, just like the safer barrier when they said, okay, we got it around the outside of the track. Well, then the drivers find a way to hit an inside wall or clip a corner that they just didn't see or think was even possible. It really is amazing of that when you think about that. And I've been around all types of racing, dirt track and whatnot, since I was a kid. I really, like I said, I don't remember anything like that happening to that level of something like that. So now that we know, okay, it could happen, obviously did. Yeah. Do you make a rule to ensure it doesn't?
Window net.
And that was one of them I thought about. Again, does that make it any better? Is the grip better on the actual sheet metal? Again, if that's wet, it's just like I said, of call it a freak accident, all the perfect things coming together for it to happen. But you don't ever want to see anything like that happen. So I know, we always say we're not in favor of NASCAR making more rules, but like you said, teams may step in and say, hey, that's not a risk we want, or whatever. We'll have to see.
We'll have to see.
I hate to. I know we went through this with the when they do the interviews, to take away from the raw emotion of celebrating. You don't want it scripted or stand here, okay, now ready, go, hey, like you just won. It is that in the moment thing. And I think about this of Chase Elliott at the Roval, I think it was, where he was on top of the car and the car was rolling.
Yes.
And he maintained his balance. So many different places where you think, oh, it could have happened there, and it didn't. So yeah, we'll have to see. Right? Yeah. I mean, and that's what it comes down to. Talk about Chase Elliott. Of then he gets hurt snowboarding. You get hurt playing frisbee golf. I think was Brad Keselowski's. Get that? I mean, I'm not asking you to live in the bubble, but that one might be worth looking at. Of, hey, I'll get out and dance outside the car. I mean, think about this. And Daniel Heinrich and Carl Edwards doing the backflip. That's one of the ones with Carl Edwards. It started off the bed of the truck. You got a little bit better flat footing. Daniel Hemrick does it, and Carl Edwards, once he got to the Cup Series and Xfinity Series, doing it off the window of the car. Again, that's something, I guess, individually or as a team, the team may say, hey, we don't want you taking that risk. So we'll see what kind of things come down from it. But I'm sure everybody will be a lot more aware of it, no doubt.
Yeah, we used to have the Matt Kenseth rule. Now we've got the Connor rule.
What was the Kenseth rule?
Oh, the Kenseth rule was how the chase was changed.
Oh, I got you. I thought you meant as far as a safety issue or celebrating.
Well,
okay, yeah.
He didn't have a win all season long and was, ended up winning.
Oh, yeah. I remember that for sure. And we saw Kraft in
that stuff. And there's a reason why we have the playoffs.
But yet then want to go back to that type of point system. I don't understand. And it surprises me that Mark Martin is in favor of it.
He is so adamant about it.
And I listened to him. I think that was on Happy Harvick, talking about the fan of CM Punk in wrestling, the voice of the voiceless, but said he felt like maybe fans weren't being listened to, so he was going to speak for them. And I was like, I get it. Okay, you definitely, your voice carries a lot further than fans. Even in this day and age, but fans, again, my opinion on this. Fans will complain about not having anything to complain about,
Well, we talked about it last week. There is a playoff committee, and they are looking at it and exploring ideas. And so we'll see what they come up with. So, but we'll see. Probably the loudest voices are going to be heard. So I wanted to talk about Stewart Friesen's situation and the playoff implications, because it's similar, but there's some differences here too.
And this one is weird. Obviously, as a driver, he is out. The fact that the truck would still be, and you have now a driver who was points as a driver eligible, got removed from his team. So you have a driver that was in and a team that was in matching up and working together. That's one of those, the stars align, just the way things happen. Not that I wanted to see it happen by any means. Again, talk about if Connor Zilisch were to not be able to run in the playoffs, Stewart Friesen, we saw him mid-year of just things just absolutely never going his way. Had an interview or two where he said he didn't even know if he wanted to do this anymore. Kept coming back, got the win. The momentum shifted, and they were doing good things, to have that happen. But there again, I mean, he's a racer. He was racing a big block modified up in Canada, doing what he loves to do. And we know that. Kyle Larson's been out running sprint cars. We've seen good and bad when it comes to that. But with the Truck Series playoffs, I think this one is going to work out the best it absolutely could under the circumstances. Like I said, Kaden Honeycutt as the driver, matching up with Helmar Friesen, the truck and the team that's in, pairing up together. I like it, the fact that that's happening that way.
Yes, I know Friesen is not going to be back for the playoffs.
No, absolutely not. Again, it's one of those of possibly, the question was even possibly any races by the end of the year. If he were able, I think it'd be a bad idea. And I think I don't know that I've seen an official announcement. I know they said Kaden Honeycutt was in the truck for the rest of the year. So they are obviously planning on whether he's healthy or not, or in a position to even think about it. Again, that one, honestly, I think you need to look at hopefully being well enough, because he got banged up pretty good. Another, again, talk about a horrific wreck. I saw some more videos of that over the week. And I know Chris said of the case of it actually may have helped him by that second car hitting him and the fire going out, which is true, because if he was already banged up and fire in the car, you might not be able to get out. So, yeah, thankful for the situation that he was. You know, we got to see him with his family, kind of like Ryan Newman. You know, once you see him with the family, it's going to be okay. Yeah, there's a road to recovery there for sure. The truck series we're going to see, I know it'll be confusing to some fans. Hopefully all broadcasts try and do a good job of covering it. When you have that owner standing is different than or the driver standing versus the owner. I know that gets confusing, and I understand it. And I'm a race fan, and I understand it all. But yeah, that can get confusing for sure. So I know here we'll talk about that, how we try and separate that and make sure we don't confuse anybody anymore. But it's still important, you know. I mean, because again, the owners do get half the purse, or I don't know if it's half, but a portion of that for the owners championship, you know. And we do still see it in this day because we're talking about the 07, and that comes into play with them moving their points over. That 07 has been an all-star cast of drivers, rotation of drivers, obviously with multiple wins. So a driver won't be eligible in that 07, but the truck is. So you're already talking about 3 trucks in that necessarily the drivers aren't. So yeah, that one, the truck series this year is going to be really confusing when it comes to that.
I do think so. And I do want to bring up, this is exactly, the silly season thing is exactly what we were talking about last week with Chris. And he said right away that Kaden Honeycutt was going to be coming to Stewart,
Helmar.
Helmar Friesen, yes.
There you go.
And I was agreeing with him. I said that's one situation, but what I could never seem to get out was that the other situation is the rumor, and I think this is very likely, of Honeycutt going then to Tricon Garage to take Corey Heim's place for the 26th season. That's another scenario that we could see play out. With this whole Stewart Friesen situation. It works out great for Honeycutt because he can now sit in that seat and still contend for the championship. So you couldn't ask for a better situation there. And they're going to get owner's points. Stewart Friesen, Helmar is going to get owner's points for that championship. So it is a tricky scenario. And but I do think that, and that is speculation,
Right.
but it's speculation. It's not just my speculation. I've seen it out there that that's a possibility of him coming into that number 11 truck for next season. So we'll see what happens. But as far as the playoff implications for this year, yeah, it's amazing how the pieces are kind of falling into place. It seems to have started with Stewart Friesen's accident, unfortunately.
Right. And the other aspect there of, you mentioned that where I said this was kind of a match made in heaven, if you will, of if the rumor is true. Again, the only statement that was made was that Kaden Honeycutt in a Chevrolet had signed with a different manufacturer for next year. Again, the number 11 Tricon Garage being vacated shortly after there. Again, that's call it one of the worst kept secrets, all but official rumor.
Yeah.
With going into the
we still have to call it speculation, though.
Right, absolutely, because it's not of that. The Helmar Friesen is a Toyota. So Kaden going into a Toyota already this year, if he goes to a Toyota next year, just helps that transition. And like you said, coincidentally, based off of the accident that the seat was available, things just aligning that direction.
Exactly right. And so when they were talking about moving with a different manufacturer, you're right. That is the reason that they let him go. And I've heard that on several podcasts that they were not going to keep him, knowing that he was planning to work with a different manufacturer for next season. So So we'll see what happens moving forward. But that's the situation with Stewart Friesen. Let's see, what else do we have up here, Jay?
Hendrick Motorsports. We got two sides to it of Hendrick Motorsports slump and coming off of a slump, if you will. Kyle Larson, again, everybody wants to point the finger back to Indianapolis. And I know the morning drive with Pistone and Bagley were talking about it. Yeah, that is about where it started. Did it have anything to do with him not doing well at the Indy 500? Highly doubt it. Because again, they said, he's going out and winning sprint car races, coming back. That one didn't work, and he comes back. Why? Don't know. But right now, the number 5 team has normally they say 800-pound gorilla. I think it's a 1,600 or 2,400-pound gorilla. Because they just can't get out of their own way. And I was surprised. I was looking at, hopefully my computer is working now here, the Cup Series points. At one point in the season, it was him and William Byron that were swapping back the overall points lead. Kyle Larson has actually dropped back into a tie for 5th, and he's on the lower side of it with Christopher Bell when it comes to that. But 85 points back now. I didn't realize it was that bad. I knew he had been slipping and not having the best of runs in recent weeks, but 85 points back, tied for 5th. Whereas then on the other side, we talked about William Byron. Wins Daytona, been consistent, led the points most of the season, I think from race number 2. Was swapped it with Kyle Larson because he was hot at the time, got it back, and then he had a rough stretch. Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin got in the mix, whereas Byron got another win now, extended the point lead. It's actually up to 42 over Chase Elliott now after Watkins Glen. So he's on the uprise, and the number 5 team, both within the same organization of that. So kind of an interesting dynamic there at HMS.
Yes, it is. And I was just looking for the playoff picture. Kyle Larson actually moves up to 4th place. He's actually tied with Christopher Bell right now at 85 points back. But Christopher Bell also has the 3 wins. But what it reflects to me here is that Kyle Larson has had so many finishes that have been like this past week. He finished dead last. He's had a few finishes where he's finishing in the 30s and the 20s, which is unusual when you think about Kyle Larson. But here's what I think might be happening. It might not. There was a day when Jimmy Johnson was winning a bunch of championships, and you could count on it. When it came to the last 10 races of the regular season, he would go into a slump. And I don't know if that was something intentional to give him a little bit of a rest before the playoffs begin, or if it was something where they were testing different things on the car to see trial and error kind of thing, where they could do some testing, in-race testing, knowing that he was going to be in the playoffs. But you could count on it happening in those 10 races before the playoffs begin. And I don't know if that's what's happening in this particular case. It just seems like there's been Kyle Larson seems to be contending. There's been some situations where he's put himself out based on how he's racing and taking chances that maybe he shouldn't be taking, going back to what we were talking about earlier. But to lose, he's back 85 points. That is a lot, but so is Christopher Bell with Toyota. He's back 85 points. He had those 3 consecutive wins and hit that peak. And again, it goes back to people peaking at the right time. But this seems like something that Kyle Larson has within his control, some of it. This week it was a mechanical issue. So that leads me to believe maybe they tried something that didn't work, or maybe it was a faulty part. We don't know.
a seal on the brake because they had bled the brakes and done something, and then they had to redo it again. They determined it was a seal, so it was a part.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would. Yep, a seal on the brake line or within the brakes, brake fluid where the brake fluid was leaking out.
Okay, so that's beyond his control. But some of the incidents that have happened on the track where he's gotten caught up, some of those have not been his fault. Some of them, he's been right in the middle of it. So they do have to get the ship turned around. I think we're going to see a different Kyle Larson once the playoffs begin. Just based on history that I've seen at Hendrick Motorsports. I think that once those playoffs begin, they are all in and doing everything they possibly can to make the most happen for their drivers. And I think that's what's going to happen here. Might not happen, but that's the way I see it, just based on what I've seen in the history of the Hendrick Motorsports.
Well, and when you look at it, okay, so he was what, 15 laps down. You mentioned finishing dead last. Why would they back out there? Why would they spend the time to repair? We've talked about this. That is what makes a championship team, and that's why the team does that. Ironically, if I'm not mistaken, after he came back out is when he set the fast lap time.
Yes, he had the fastest lap.
Okay, but it was before he went out, lap 11.
Okay.
I thought they said though it was after he came back out. I'm trying to remember what lap he went down to begin with. But if he was 15 laps down, obviously it was after that. But
I can tell you what he went out on. I'll tell you in a couple of seconds here.
Okay.
Go ahead and with your thoughts though.
Oh, yeah, but that just shows that, again, the team's not going to just give up if they need the situation to. It shows the team commitment, their ability to respond. You know, we've talked about this of you have a bad day, you overcome, you make the most of it. In this particular case, did they gain anything? No, they still finished dead last. But just the procedure of going through it and whatnot, I think does show a lot. As far as that team, again, you want to have that never quit, never say die attitude.
Exactly right. I'm going somewhere else because they give live updates during the race here.
Well, and I say, being that he was 15 laps down, because even if he lost a lap or two after that, obviously he had gone out.
It was lap 6. Back, Larson spun in turn 1, but continued, says no brakes, there's no caution. And then later on, Larson loses a lap while in the pits. The team can't identify the problem, so he will go to the garage for repairs. That was lap 8.
Well, then because it says lap 11 is when he set the fast lap time. He must have been his 11th lap.
Maybe it was his 11th lap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me look at
that. And I thought that's what during the broadcast they said that he had said it after he came back out.
Yeah, lap 11 it says.
Huh. But anyway, again, just the perseverance, overcoming. You know, again, did they gain a lot by what they did? No, obviously not in this particular case. But when it comes to the playoff time, we talk about that 1 point. If it's the fast lap point, 1 or 2 positions gained. You know, had he been not quite so far down, we saw some of the incidences that had been happening. You know, again, gain that 1 or 2 spots could make the difference when it comes to advancing to the next round or not. So you got to appreciate that. Again, whatever it is that's got him snake bit right now. I know you were comparing to, and Tony Stewart is another one I think of used to kind of be quiet during the summer months and then into August, and when it heats up, Tony Stewart would heat up.
You could count on it.
But in that day and age, it was a little bit different. Now that we have this chase format, win and you're in, move on, the playoff points, stage racing and points, I don't think we see that as much. I don't think
that the changes were to discourage that from him.
Right, absolutely. Of that, you wanted to see him racing hard all race long, all year long. And I think that is part of, like you said, you're right, what brought about the changes of stage racing and stage points and whatnot. So I don't know that. I'm not saying that again. You got the wins. Again, we see people make different strategy calls. They know they got to win. William Byron, again, he could have another win. He ran out of fuel. They know they got to win in the bank, and they're locked in, being at the top of the points. Yeah, they can take that chance. So there is some of that. Denny Hamlin was one they were saying was trying, and they never gave a bunch of details, but different driving aspect. And I'm trying to think where we saw it, where they really did try something different on the car about 3 or 4 races ago. Clearly did not work. They probably took those notes, threw them in the garbage, burned it, trashed it, whatever, because it did not work. So yeah, if you get a win in early on or a couple and got some playoff points, by all means, you want to, but you got to be careful about losing your momentum and then not being able to get it back, because as you said, peaking at the right time. So right now, and you mentioned Christopher Bell, he's actually been on kind of an upward swing as well. Yes. You're right. Early in the year, we're like, man, he's going to win them all. Who's going to stop him? Now we're like SVG. He's at the top. He's tied with 4 wins. So we'll have to see. And that goes back to look at the previous 2 years. Penske, where they at? Playoffs. Oh, they won the championship. How about that?
And that's kind of a pattern that they have at Penske. They sometimes don't. They don't seem to really show up during the year with a lot of wins, but all of a sudden during the playoffs and at the right times, they are right there. And I kind of anticipate that happening again this year. So,
all right. Well, anything else there? Whoops.
Let's see. What else do we have? William Byron is he turning the corner after a second half slump? I think so.
Yeah. Like I said, right now on the upswing, I definitely see William Byron. And again, talk about Hendrick Motorsports as a whole kind of split. William Byron on the upswing. Chase Elliott, has kind of been, along with Alex Bowman. And then unfortunately, Kyle Larson right now on the downside. But like you said, come playoff time, it's go time. I think we will see a different organization as a whole come into play.
Yeah,
I know
go ahead.
The last topic there was that just the overall, as you had it, playoffs, who's in and who's out. Obviously, we got Daytona as the season finale, so that question really can't be answered.
That's going to be the wild card, absolutely.
Do you have the actual the NASCAR one of the playoff standings? Did Tyler Reddick lock in? Because we only got 2 races remaining now. Did Tyler Reddick actually lock in on points?
Let me take a look here. We want to look at the playoff picture.
Yep.
Actually, let's look at points, because the playoff picture, let me kind of put this up on screen.
Yeah, but if I do that, I got to do the math. Okay, let me find Tyler Reddick, 701. We got to go down to Chris Buescher at 618. Nope, I don't think so.
Because this does not show the points on the playoff picture. We got to look at the playoff points in order to see that. So right now, Tyler Reddick is 111. No,
okay, so he did not. I knew it was just under, because 122, I think, is what you'd had to have been up. So he's close, but not guaranteed. Again, all but, because you can get 61 points with that fast lap award. I think you can get a maximum of 61 points now. So technically, 122 would be the actual mathematical points. So at what'd you say, 111? Yeah, right on. All but locked in. I knew they were talking about that he could actually lock himself in based on points after this weekend. Because again, we can only have possibility of 2 new winners, which would bump out Chris Buescher and Alex Bowman. And then Tyler Reddick would be next. So Looks like Tyler Reddick is guaranteed, pretty much guaranteed in. So you got Alex Bowman and Chris Buescher, the two that are on the cut line.
And Chris Buescher did increase his advantage, but not by, he was 23 points to the good. Now he's 34 points to the good, while Ryan Preece is 34 points below that cut line.
You know, and this weekend at Richmond's really going to determine that of who's in the must-win situation. Richmond, yes, and I know you go back to, I think, all the way back to, Casey Kane, who's raced their way in to this playoff system. Richmond used to be at one point the cutoff race way back when, if you've been around racing for a while. So, yeah, I don't know that I see anybody. The one I know, Kyle Busch, again, he had a fast car. Things just didn't quite work out, unfortunately. Brad Keselowski, he's another one. I mean, and Richmond is one of his better tracks, I believe.
Yeah, I think there's drivers below that line that could come up with a victory.
You know, and that'd be the big thing, because we know, like we mentioned, Daytona, it really could be anybody. We've seen it in the past already. So, yeah, you certainly don't want to be in that position. Yeah, I mean, at this point, honestly, with the exception of Tyler Reddick, should lock himself in points. It'd be a two drivers in, two out, based on these next two races and who might get a win. But I think Richmond, I would say there is that possibility, like I said, of looking at Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski. Here as of late, again, Carson Hocevar, with the speed they've been having, I don't know if Richmond, the short track, is necessarily where we'd see it. But certainly at the super speedway of Daytona, again, Brad Keselowski, a good Daytona racer. The one in the middle there that I kind of skipped over, Ty Gibbs.
Yes.
You know, and we heard some things over the radio this week, again, of just right on that edge. Again, I don't know that I would list Richmond as his necessarily best track, but yeah, it'll be interesting.
He's in desperation mode right now, and I think we kind of saw that at Watkins Glen.
I think so too. I do think that is what kind of led to it. You know, and they were talking about that, of the decision to have Chris Gabehart as that senior authority. Got on the radio and said, "Hey, knock it off, drive the car," and Gibbs did. I'm trying to think what other crewman he was kind of going back and forth with.
I think he kind of said something to the effect of, "We're calling the strategy. If you want to call
you drive the car, yeah."
We'll stand back. And he did give him a strategy, but it did not work out.
Right.
They did his strategy and it didn't work out. So I think he did that purposefully to say, let us call the strategy. You're the driver.
Yeah. And that's one of those of, again, you know, like you said, the frustration or desperation mode. Sorry, not frustration. Maybe a little bit of frustration as well, but desperation mode. Of coming down to it. You know, it'd be a shame. We saw it with Lane Riggs of, okay, you don't make the playoffs, but then you do get hot and maybe win a race or two, as we've saw Lane Riggs do. You know, it's still a good way to end the season, but it would sting all that much more of knowing, had you been in the playoffs, what you could have done.
Yep. And like you say, it's really so hard to really give any predictions of who is going to win or not win, especially when you have a track like Daytona coming up on the schedule here. Richmond might be a little bit easier to make some predictions, but it's just the luck of the race.
Well, and there again, I mean, honestly, most likely, I think you're looking at Richmond of it coming from, and I hate to point the finger, but Denny Hamlin. I mean, that's one of his better tracks. Yes. You know, wanting to bounce back after whatever his driving strategy at Watkins Glen didn't work. Let's go back to something I know. Richmond, win another race. You certainly, that wouldn't be a big surprise to see him come back and do. Kyle Larson, another one.
Well, the win for Hamlin would further separate him from Shane Van Gisbergen.
And you're right. I mean, there are two of he could be looking at. He may not get the regular season championship as he's 81 points out. So yeah, you're right. That might be. Hey, I'm gonna go in with the most playoff points from that aspect. So you're right.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the strategy of how they call a race. That might be their whole goal. Maybe you see them go after the stage points or something, knowing again that 1 or 2 playoff points is going to help separate him, like you said, from Kyle Larson and Shane Van Gisbergen. Yeah, Larson's actually in between them. Denny has 24, Larson has 23, and SVG has 22. So those are the three that are in the 20s. When you look at
the playoff points, I think Larson is in 4th place.
Yeah, Larson had actually, or SVG would come up. Larson would get additional ones because he's in the top 10 in the final season rankings, because he shouldn't fall out of that. So that factors into. And that's what I know some fans don't like it. They want to see it all about outright racing. No, there's going to be a lot of strategy. And I say we saw that at Watkins Glen, with depending on where they were in points and who they were racing against. I think, you saw, hey, they got points. We're right with them. We need to make sure we get the points the next time. I think that changed some of the team's strategies.
I do too. I think it does change their strategy. And, we'll see what happens. Kyle Larson, I always like to tell the story of when he was a kid, and his mom asked him, why do you always go to the back of these races? You should want to start up front. And he said, but I like passing the cars. He enjoys the passing of the cars, racing from the back to the front. And so, maybe that's the case here. Maybe he wants to start a little bit further back and kind of push himself to excel during the playoffs. I don't know. But that's it. I'm just saying.
I've seen that interview, and as a kid, you're right, and that helps you grow and get to the cup level. I think once you're at the cup level, you don't see very many drivers voluntarily going to the back. No, actually, I just talked about that with some dirt track drivers.
He's not going to the back necessarily. He's in 4th for the playoffs to start at this point.
Right.
But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
No, it's sometimes dirt tracks. I've seen it more at dirt tracks. I'm not saying no asphalt tracks do it, but they'll put up a bonus. If you have, say, the fastest car or whatever, you can voluntarily start at the back. And if you win, then you get an additional bonus of whatever. Once in a while, you'll see a driver take that. But, yeah, most of them are like, no, I ain't giving up my top spot. No way.
You got to be kidding.
Yeah, you got to be pretty confident in yourself, your car, the track, everything when it comes to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Anything else you wanted to point out here with regard to the playoffs?
No, I'm really looking forward to it again as everything settles out. I know we kind of did this already, and we talked about it a little bit earlier in tonight's show of even with who's already locked in, who do we think, are the championship for? Man, at this point, again, with the way people's seasons have been, say William Byron and Chase. I say William Byron and Christopher Bell, probably the two, and Chase Briscoe, the hottest drivers right now. But again, we've seen Penske not be on fire coming into the playoffs and say, hey, it's go time, and they go. So, and we have two of the Penske, 3, Austin Cindric. Again, that tells you right there, I forgot he was even in the playoffs. He does have the one win.
Actually below the 16 drivers.
Yeah, that one I've not seen anything from. Right now, looking at it, just real quick off the top of my head, talk about eliminations. We were talking about doing Taz was talking about doing the playoff prediction and filling out something all the way. So right now, first round, and let's say they get in as they are, we'll say Alex Bowman and Chris Buescher both get in. We get no new winners. I would have to put Austin Cindric and Josh Berry with wins that aren't even above the cut line as to just, again, Josh Berry, man, got the win and looked good early in the year, but what we have seen of him as of late has been a highlight reel of what went wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those would be 2 of my 4 that I'd say we're going to be out in the first round. Then you'd say, okay, the 2 that don't have wins, but Alex Bowman and Chris Buescher, another one we've seen rip off 2 or 3 wins, not maybe necessarily in a row, but real close together in the playoffs a year or 2 back. So the other one, another one, and he's got no win, would be Tyler Reddick. And that one I say of where that team shows up, because that one has been so sporadic. Yeah. Again, did you even hear him mentioned this weekend at Watkins Glen? I think the only time I heard it was when they were confused about the Monster Energy sponsorship and identifying which car was which. That was the only time I think I heard his name.
Yeah, he really wasn't a contender and really hasn't been a contender in most of the races. He did get a top 10 finish, though, at Watkins Glen. He finished in 7th.
And that's where I say, again, and that might then get him through that first round, but that's not going to get you to the playoffs of that. It's really not. And unfortunately, I know Kevin Harvick called Chase Elliott out for this last year already. Again, getting those top 10 finishes is great, gets you in the regular season point standings, but in the playoffs, that's not going to cut it. I mean, it's just not.
I'm trying to understand. I noticed that some of these drivers, are these playoff drivers? No. I'm trying to understand that a bunch of drivers have a little asterisk next to the open teams, maybe?
Oh, you're right, because they are now you're right. That is. You're right. I was looking at it too. I was like, you're right. Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace.
Yes. Okay,
that's the open team. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Those are the open teams.
You hadn't even said what you were looking at, but all of a sudden I was looking at the same thing.
Yeah. So those are the open teams with the asterisk next to their name. So, yeah, it is going to be interesting. I think Brad Keselowski at Daytona could be a contender. We'll have to see. Even at Richmond, he could be a contender.
And I'd hate to see it 1-for-1 as far as RFK, but the one on the outside you mentioned, points-wise, probably into almost have to win. You said, 34, 30-some points? 34. Ryan
34.
Preece. Man, I would like to see him get in, but I don't want to see Chris Buescher or Alex Bowman out either.
I know. That's the thing. If any of these drivers from below the line go out, we lose some of the drivers that are currently in. And you hate to see those drivers lose their spot because they don't have a win. We'll see what happens. I think it's very possible we'll have a repeat winner at Richmond. I'm just not so sure that it's going to be a repeat winner at Daytona.
Daytona is so wide open. I know they were talking about Michael McDowell talking about that of the road course here, and then Daytona. Again, not that he doesn't have a shot. We have seen speed out of Spire Motorsports. But at Richmond, if I were to pick a Spire Motorsports, I would have to go with Carson Hocevar. But yeah. I'm with you. I think the odds favor one of the drivers that has already won this year. Daytona, whole different story, and that's why it's where it's at on the schedule. That's one of those of, they bounced it around. I know traditional fans want to see it go back to the 4th of July race. Not me. That is an absolute perfect place for it as the season finale. One last wild card shot. I love it.
Season opener and the regular season finale.
Yep. Again, there's so many things that match up the way that works. I like it.
Yeah, I agree. And it sounds like, it sounds like they've got some plans for 4th of July next year, maybe at Chicagoland. But the street race, if it ever comes back to Chicagoland, they want a different date. So we'll see how that plays out.
Well, that's right. I suppose you're against anything of 4th of July if you think Chicagoland's coming back 4th of July weekend.
I don't know. Who do you think's going to take over that 4th of July weekend?
Yeah, I know they said of it, and it being that, again, with what else is going on downtown Chicago that weekend, again, somebody's got to take it. Chicagoland being a little further out in Juliet at least moves it a little way out of the city itself. I understand the reasoning on that. We'll see. Again, we've heard, I don't think that one has been official yet, but some heavy rumor of Chicagoland being back on the schedule. So
we'll see.
Did you see they already have a commercial out for the San Diego race?
Yes.
Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney. I'm trying to think what other drivers I got to give props to that of a year plus out, and the commercial again didn't show a lot. They talked about the track layout, but they didn't show it or anything. But yeah, I thought that was great that they are already promoting it like that, as we saw. So I thought that was kind of cool seeing that this weekend.
Yeah, I think they gave us some previews of that commercial as well before they showed it on TV. But yeah, that was pretty cool to see.
I know we were talking about, with the in-season championship, we said, well, they didn't promote it enough getting to it. I'm like, well, they didn't do that with San Diego. They're doing it a year plus out.
Yep, they're really, that's good. I commend them for that.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if it's going to be Julie Geis, if she's going to be responsible for Chicagoland, or if they're going to move her talents to San Diego.
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't seen. I know we had talked about that, honestly, with what she was able to do with Chicagoland or Chicago Street Course. Now, again, I don't know if that tied into because she's from that area. Is that true?
I don't know.
Okay. Maybe doesn't have the same connections in San Diego as she did in Chicago. But I would certainly, if nothing else, have that phone number on speed dial as a consultant. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I know it's a little bit different. Again, you got the involvement of it being a military installation. And I meant to ask, I didn't get a chance. I told Chris on our show that night that I'd see what I could find out from somebody about that, as far as what kind of restrictions, as far as camping, and what kind of behavior of NASCAR fans they would accept there. But I didn't get a chance to ask Tony that.
Oh, okay. I was just looking to see if I could find out where Julie Geis is from.
Yeah, I don't remember if she is from the Chicago area or not, but again, over the 3 years she built those relationships. Like I said, it'd be a little bit different in San Diego. But like I said, I would certainly have her on speed dial as far as a consultant with what she was able to do with the Chicago Street Course.
Okay. Yeah, it's not telling me where her hometown is. So I can't answer that question. I tried.
All right. Well, something to look forward to next week. Whoops.
Okay. Well, Jay, I think we're pretty much winding down at this point. We did a good job of getting through everything. And it's not midnight.
No, not quite. Yeah, not tonight. I know we had a couple up to 4 or 5, I think, watching throughout the night. Appreciate it. Hopefully, again, you'll chime in here next time. I don't think, we didn't have any other comments tonight. But we appreciate you.
Use on the replay, though, so we'll see how that plays out.
Looking forward to it, and keep sharing it and watching and building our base here. And again, hopefully we'll get more interaction. I know all sports all day. Apparently wasn't on tonight.
I kind of missed him. We do want to say watch for more coming soon. I mentioned earlier we did the interview with Kyle Keller, the winner of the ARCA West Series race out at Tri-City. I'll have that out tomorrow morning, so watch for that interview coming out. We did all of the reviews, and they are out already. And Jay and I will be back later this week. 3 previews coming up for the race weekend at actually 2 at Richmond with the NASCAR Truck Series as well as the Cup Series are racing on Friday night and Saturday night. And then the Illinois State Fairgrounds for the ARCA Menards Series, a dirt race for that particular event that is coming up this weekend. That race will be on Sunday. The NASCAR Xfinity Series is taking a break. And so 3 races. Taz and I will be out on Friday with our fantasy report to help you with fantasy picks for I might talk to him to see if we can do that on Thursday. I'm just thinking about it. I guess we could still get it out on Friday. That race is Saturday night. But for your fantasy picks for that Cup Series race at Richmond. And then we'll be back on the other side of the weekend with our reviews and Hot Topic sound off at 10 o'clock Eastern time. So, Jay, what are you doing this weekend?
Let's see. Oh, we have our church food distribution Friday and Saturday. Friday night we'll be bagging up, and Saturday morning distributing food in the Columbus area, or in Columbus. We do it at the church, so they got to come to us. We don't go around, but so that's Saturday morning. And then Saturday night, I know I had told Chris I might come down to the Street Stock Nationals, but we got a church event. I don't know if you know what the Emmaus Walk is, but we have sponsors and we do some things with that. So I'll be participating in that for the church. So
okay, very cool.
We had double features with the Mississippi Crate Late Model Series at Jackson this past weekend. Went pretty good. It shuffled up their point standings as they did a makeup feature from back in May. We got rained out, so they ran 2 30-lap features Saturday night to make up for that. There was a good showing there. So good time, and hopefully good weather. I know the Clash at the Mag, if you're a super late model fan, that was this past weekend at Magnolia Motor Speedway. Weather held out. Track was a little wet and thick, but they got it in, and the Georgia Bulldog, Shane Clanton, came over and whooped up on them.
And we'll do a reminder for Chris Crichton that the Street Stock Southern Nationals, the Southern Street Stock Nationals will be at Why Not Motorsports Park coming up. I don't know, is that this weekend or next weekend? No,
that's this weekend. Practice starts Wednesday night, and then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday racing.
Okay, so if you're in that neck of the woods, you want to stop by there and take in a race or two this weekend. So 4 days of racing with Why Not Motorsports Park and that Southern Street Stock National.
Go up and harass that announcer.
Say hi for us from Fanfa Racing, the Fanfa Racing crew. And then I'm Fanfa Racing Site on Twitter and Fanfa Racing Blog and Radio on Facebook, as well as our website, fanfaracing.com, where we put up the recaps. And then we do have an RSS feed of all of our YouTube shows are available there as well at the bottom of the page. But we also want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. We've been getting some pretty good views on our Hot Topic Sound Off. I think last week we were over 168 views, or maybe 179 views on our Hot Topic Sound Off last week. And we get a lot of views during the show, but also a lot of views afterward as well. So thank you for tuning in. We do appreciate you for taking the time to hear what we have to say. And we appreciate each and every one of you, no matter how you're watching us, whether it's on the live stream or the playback. So thank you. And with that, Jay, I think we're ready to sign off for tonight.
Also, with that, just to let you know, you can still comment. I know whether this one being live, you can still leave the comment. Sharon and I, one of the two, will get back to you and have that discussion there. If you still want to leave a comment, feel free. Please do.
Absolutely. We have the live stream chat feature, but there's also the comments that come just below the actual video. So that's where you can comment after the live stream. So thank you, everybody. We do appreciate the interaction, and we do appreciate you tuning in. So enjoy the week, and we'll see you for the previews.
Have a good week.